Well, Razorback fans, you got yourself a massive win over the Vanderbilt Commodores. Let's talk about it and celebrate it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday with a big win, and I must apologize up front, folks. I have a severe tooth pain and toothache right now, and I'm probably going to be having to have emergency surgery on it here soon. So just giving y'all a heads up in case there's some inconsistencies or whatnot. I'm going to do my best to do it, but I am fighting through a lot of pain right now. I am doing my best, but I appreciate each and every one of you locking in and listening in here on Locked On Razorbacks. And it's helps a pain, especially a tooth pain, winning. The Razorback basketball team winning a game, that usually helps and gets me all excited and able to fight through a little bit more, because that's exactly what the Razorbacks did last night. 90-77 in a late one, an extremely late game. The Razorbacks take care of business over the Vanderbilt Commodores. We know that game against South Carolina was so bad, so awful. Cal even talked about not even watching film. Like, didn't even reference it, didn't bring it up to the players, didn't do anything like that. Just said, all right, next game, guys, is Vanderbilt. He knows that wasn't his team. And then in this particular case, he was able to will his team to victory. A massive victory. One that was desperately needed, because if you're wanting to go to the NCAA tournament, you got to continue to prove yourself worthy, to prove that you are not only a team that is able to get into the NCAA tournament and being a team that's in the top 68 teams, but also a team that can maybe do some damage. And you stepped up, and you stepped up in a major way against the Vanderbilt team that has played extremely well here recently, has had some big wins in a building that's really hard to win in too. It's extremely hard to win in that building, but you took care of business, and it was just night and day. All five starters had double figures. And we'll talk about Nelly Davis. Nelly had a Nelly Davis game, the Nelly Davis that we all have wanted to see and continue to want to see. He played almost every minute of this game, but he has 21 points, 7 of 18 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, has 4 rebounds, 2 assists. A block shot, did have 3 turnovers, because Arkansas did have 15 turnovers as a total team. But he did his job. That's exactly what you want to see out of Nelly Davis. Trevon Brazile, man, we're going to talk about him in a little bit as a dedicated segment. But what a game out of Trevon Brazile. 16 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 block shots, 2 steals. I mean, what else could you say? 6 of 8 from the field, too. Efficient. 3 of 5 from 3. Trevon Brazile had his best game of the season. I don't think you could even argue it. Dude was everywhere, making plays, making adjustments, just energizing himself. The windmill dunks, it just looked like the Trevon Brazile of old that we all remembered. And when he first got to Arkansas in that year under Muss, he really, really looked good. We'll talk more about him in a second, but he had a great game. DJ Wagner had a quiet but efficient game. He had 14 points, 5 of 9 from the field, hit 2 threes. Also had 3 assists, no turnovers, 2 rebounds also. Big Z. You know what's funny about Big Z is that there's so many times he has a great game, and I know he's playing well, but then I look at the stats and everything. I was like, geez, I guess he actually played better than I thought. Like, he was 6 of 11 from the field, 14 points. Did have 1 3. Had 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 block shots, and a steal. So he did really good. Jonas Adu didn't play a whole lot, but that's what he does. He doesn't play a whole lot. But he was good and efficient. He had 7 points, 2 of 3 from the field, 8 rebounds. He did have 4 fouls, as well as Carter Knox, who also had 10 points, 4 of 9 from the field, and had some pretty muscle plays down low, with also 5 rebounds. The only guy that really struggled was Billy Richmond. Now, he had 8 points on the day, but 7 turnovers by Billy. I love Billy. I think Billy can be great, and he's got so much upside and so much energy. But man, he can make some pretty detrimental mistakes in the turnover battle, and that's exactly what happened in this game. 7 turnovers, way too many. But Arkansas was still able to get the victory. Cal even got a technical foul for the first time all year long. He got his first technical. Came at a weird time too, like in a timeout. So I thought the officiating was pretty poor at times, to be honest. I felt like they were allowing certain ticky-tack fouls, but then some real physical fouls that should have been called weren't. That's neither here nor there. I'm not going to talk about the officiating because Arkansas won. That's how it works, right? That's how it works. But I'm seriously, this was a great win for the Razorbacks. They shot 51% from the field, 33% from three, 72% from the free throw line. They had 48 points in the paint because Arkansas, they're that team that loves to get down there and nasty. Not really, but I mean, that's awesome for them. They were driving the ball. They were getting to it. They had 19 second chance points on 12 offensive rebounds, 17 fast break points. It was beautiful. I mean, it was a beautiful showing. Again, 15 turnovers is too many, but when one of them came from one, or half of them came from one player, essentially, it could have been so much worse. So much worse. But you did your job. You went against a tough team, took care of business, and got out of there with a win. And now, where it looks like right now, the Arkansas Razorbacks are in the NCAA tournament. Joe Lenardi has them in. Most of the bracketologists have Arkansas in. It'd be really nice for you to beat Mississippi State, who lost to Texas last night, by the way. It'd be really nice if you could beat Mississippi State in your home finale in the final game in Bud Walton Arena this year. And hopefully it can be in front of a great crowd. But I think even if you did lose to Mississippi State, which let's just hope it doesn't happen. But even if you did lose, I still feel pretty good about your chances of being in the NCAA tournament, or at least in as a play-in game. I feel good about it. That was what this type of win that you needed. And you have put yourself in a really good spot. It's been up and down all around, I know. It's not been ideal. But to follow up, and this is what I'm most impressed by, folks. To follow up that absolutely disgusting display of basketball against South Carolina just a few days ago. To follow that up by going on the road to Nashville against a very high quality, high end, playing their best basketball Vanderbilt team and win. And not only win, but win fairly convincingly. I mean, you won by 13 points. And that essentially was what your lead was. I mean, you got up as much as 17 points in this game. But you held your own. It was never really in doubt. I think the closest that Vanderbilt got in the second half may have been like 8 points. But you just took care of business. You kept making plays. You kept making shots. And now here you are at 7-10 in SEC play with a chance to go 8-10, folks. And if you go 8-10, by beating Mississippi State, is that going to do anything for you in the long run as far as the SEC tournament? I don't know about matchups and everything, but it puts you about right smack in the middle of the pack, which is really frustrating at times because the teams you'll be above would be teams like Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, teams that you beat, but also teams that you lost to, like Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, South Carolina. That would be extremely frustrating. But kudos to you. I want to give nothing but credit. Credit where credit is due. You did a good job, Hogs. You bounced back in a nice way. And I'm thankful for that because I just was really, we talked about it, the unpredictability of this team. We talked about it yesterday on the podcast. And I'm not taking credit for it, but I was going into it where I was a little bit confident because all the signs pointed to Vanderbilt winning. All the signs pointed to that. Everything felt like it was coming into place perfectly for Arkansas. All of it. And you did your job. You defied the odds. Also got some money out of it too. But this is the type of win that you got to build upon now, though. I mean, I know I keep saying that. Every win should be that way. But for all that is holy, Hogs, before we start talking about Trevon Brazile, for all that is holy, give your home fans a good send-off. Give the fans of Bud Walton Arena a good final game on Saturday. Don't follow up this performance with another stinker, especially at home. No more stinkers. Stinkers are done. You need to be playing great. Because if you take care of business against Mississippi State, you're in the tournament. Like you might be now, but it needs to be the mentality. You beat Mississippi State at home, you're in the tournament. Plain and simple. Do it. Please. I beg you from the bottom of my soul. Beat the Bulldogs from Starkville. Thank you. Don't let me down. But one guy that didn't let anyone down in this game was Trevon Brazile. And I want to talk about him specifically on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, you need to get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, which is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order your products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated home line, as well as free shipping and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I want to talk about Trevon Brazile, folks, for a little bit, if you'll indulge me. Trevon Brazile, as we mentioned, had the game of his life last night. And I want to read this stat line again, just so you all can truly understand how good he was. 16 points on 6 of 8 shooting, 3 of 5 from the three-point line, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 block shots, and 2 steals in 36 minutes. Trevon Brazile, ladies and gentlemen. Trevon Brazile. Now, if you listen to me on Inside Arkansas Live, which you should, and if you've listened to me even on this podcast, you will know that I am someone who maybe has a little bit of a soft spot for Trevon Brazile. I think Trevon Brazile is a guy that has had some bad games. He's had his struggles. He's had injuries. He's had a lot go against him. And a lot of times it's been frustrating. Now, whether it's been his lack of intensity at times or the too much lack of intensity when it comes to getting dumb fouls. He's not perfect by any stretch. He's not the best player on this game and this team by any stretch. And I honestly, truly don't expect him to have a game like he did against Vanderbilt again this weekend. It'd be great if he does, but I'm not expecting it. So don't misconstrue me talking about Trevon Brazile in this light as some sort of like, oh, I think he's arrived and all that. I'm not saying that, folks. But I do believe that Trevon Brazile deserves praise as a Razorback. Not necessarily always become his game, and sometimes you can become critical. I've become critical of him. I mean, that's what we do as players. But my no slander list includes Trevon Brazile. I got 3 of them right here. In fact, I'm going to try to show you on the camera, and hopefully it doesn't mess up right there. But those are my 3 players that you cannot slander. Hudson Clark, John Bolton, and Trevon Brazile. Now, the reason I have Hudson Clark on there, the no-fly zone, is because Hudson was always way over the top, criticized, even though he was a solid secondary player for the Razorbacks. John Bolton, also a good friend of mine, who was a better player than what people gave him credit for, and was also put in a pretty tough position at that spot at the shortstop deal, and was great defensively. Maybe it wasn't the best hitter, but was a dude that did his job and did everything he could. Trevon Brazile, though, and the reason that he is on my list of no slander is because of his journey getting here to Arkansas and where he's at now, and the things that he has said and done. Nobody's perfect. Makes mistakes. But I think back to when Trevon Brazile announced that he was transferring to Arkansas, I was about as pumped as anybody. I mean, I saw what freak athlete he was at Missouri and so much untapped potential for Arkansas to be getting him, part of that great transfer portal class with Ricky Council and guys like that. I was feeling, man, this guy could really fit into a role. And boy, did he. In the beginning of that year with Anthony Black and all of them, it was alley-oop city. Highlight dunks, posterizations, just incredible play. And in a lot of cases, hitting threes. Had an offensive game to him. Made a bunch of big-time plays, especially for a guy his size and his athleticism to do. And then he got hurt. He was out for the full season, which sucked. Now, Arkansas went on to the Sweet 16, but he was hurt for the season. And I'll never forget, I was in Des Moines, and when I was working for the Buzz, and we were able to, as media, go in there and interview the players in the locker room after a game or before practice, whatever it was, or after practice. And so they would just be sitting in their lockers. We'd go up to him, and Trevon Brazile was just there. And we hadn't heard from Trevon Brazile about his intentions or anything. But we talked to him, and he said he was going to talk about it and everything. But I kind of remember getting the vibe that he gave off that he was going to come back the next year, because there was talk about him trying to go to the NBA because he was grading out as maybe a potentially second-round pick. And as soon as I got over the interview, I kind of had the idea that, he's going to come back next year. And he did. He didn't have to, but he did. Now, the year did not go the way that anybody wanted last year. I mean, if not Trevon Brazile, not Eric Musselman, not Razorback fans, it was a bad year. Trevon Brazile dealt with injuries and also was kind of dealt a hand of having this high expectation of him coming in, and it just didn't fit out. And there was just a lot of issues. And on top of all of that, some pretty awful rumors and speculation and nonsense that was started from people from another school in the SEC about Trevon. I'm not going to go into that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go look it up. But it was pretty awful. And Trevon never said anything about it, never gave it any of that credit, never even acknowledged it, just went out there and kept playing his game. And then Muss leaves. And that puts Brazile in quite an interesting situation of like, what do I do? Well, he decides that he wants to declare for the NBA. So my coach isn't here. This is a good time for me. Let me go to the NBA. And Arkansas hires Coach Cal. Now, I will admit, whenever Coach Cal got hired, I did not think Trevon Brazile would be somebody that would come back to the team. Or that Cal would even want, not because of his lack of talent, but just because of Cal wants to have his guys and his people, and doesn't really matter about continuity when you can just do something like that. But then it came out that Trevon Brazile not only wanted to return to school and withdraw from the transfer portal, as well as the NBA. I guess he did try to do it into the portal too, but withdraw from it. But he wanted to play for Arkansas. And he went to Coach Cal and wanted to play. And Coach Cal gave him the opportunity to stay on the team and to completely have a different role, where he was used to being a starter at Arkansas when he was healthy, a guy that was counted on tremendously offensively, had a game of his life against Duke. His role had to change suddenly, where he's going to be a bench player. Getting some minutes here and there, but having to adjust his role. And then finally, the real thing that really stood out to me, and this is more personal, was when Bob Holt passed away. You all know how much Bob meant to me and meant to a lot of people. And, seeing the tributes and everything were awesome. But to see Trevon Brazile after, I don't even remember which game it was that Arkansas played in the non-conference. But after the game, it was the first game after Bob's passing. And he got a tribute to him. He just, before he even started the press conference, he's like, I just want to say this. He's like, Arkansas lost a great one. And it's just, that really stood out to me. And I really appreciate it. He didn't go into this whole thing. He just wanted to say his piece on it. So I say all of that, folks, to say this about Trevon Brazile. You can talk about the frustrating times that he has in his game, time he misses shots, or when he gets dumb fouls, whatever. We can talk about that, and that's fair. But Brazile is on my no slander list, and why I won't accept any slanders, because this is a guy that had every opportunity to leave Arkansas. He had reasons to leave after injury to go to the NBA. He had reasons to leave because of a coaching change happening and his coach leaving. He had a chance to go to other places in the transfer portal because that there were a lot of people that were coming after him. He had a chance to do those things. But he stayed here at Arkansas. He chose Arkansas. And that's always going to mean a lot to me. Whether it's a great player, an average player, or a bad player, that's worth something to me. Where you have opportunities elsewhere. You can do so many other things, but you chose to come back here. You chose to wear that Razorback jersey, and you chose to give it your all. And that means something. Not every player is like that. And honestly, Trevon Brazile may be one of the few players we see, again, that's at Arkansas for 3 straight years and plays. Because here's the deal, too, folks. He's technically got another year of eligibility if he wanted to come back. So I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know. But I just wanted to give him his flowers and show the appreciation that at least I have for Trevon Brazile and what he's done at Arkansas so far. And hopefully, whenever his career ends here at Arkansas, whether it's this year or next year or whenever, I hope it ends on a great note. The guy deserves to be in the NCAA tournament. He's never had a chance to play in it. And I hope it ends on a great note because he deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. So appreciate you, Trevon. And hopefully you continue to play really well. We'll get into the little bit of the baseball side of things too. Something that bothers me. And then we'll close up shop. So stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. This will be a quick segment, folks, but I just wanted to bring this up because it's really frustrating to me. Arkansas is going to play a baseball game today that they have to finish from yesterday because it got postponed due to weather and lightning and all of that. And they have another game today against UL Monroe, so they're going to kind of have like a game in a couple innings, whatever it is. Because right now where it stands, it's the bottom of the 7th inning, and Arkansas is up 10-1. And there's runners at 2nd and 3rd with Arkansas bat. So if you want to look at it from this perspective, Aloy is technically up the bat. If he ends up hitting a single, Arkansas wins. Say the first pitch, boop, it's a single, Arkansas wins. Because it makes them have 10 runs after 10, or up 10 after 7. They were in a position to do that so easily. But they just had that one guy get a hit. And it's just so funny how that ends up happening. And you're just like, seriously, why not just call the game? Baseball's funny. I'm sure that Dave Van Horn talked about. I'm sure that the coach of ULM talked about. I'm sure there's a reason why they're doing it. But it's just like, man, it's such a funny thing, that baseball, and how it's approached and how it works and what they do and what they don't do and all of those things. But I just hate that they... I don't know, as a baseball player, I feel like I'm trying to get warmed up again and getting there and anywhere, especially if you get all psyched up and ready to go, which I know you have a game afterwards. Psyched up and all ready to go, and it's just like Aloy's up for batting and like a sack fly. Game over. Could be a quick end to it. Hopefully it is, though, for the Razorback fans. Well, appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.